I'd like to call to order the Joint Health and Human Service and Finance and Audit Budget Committee meetings
Hit the gavel.
Bang the gavel.
Tanner.
of Monday, January 22nd, 2024. The time is now 3:01. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I can get a motion to adopt the agenda.
Romano adopts the agenda.
Support Nard.
Motion by Romano, supported by Nard. Please vote.
Motion passes 10-0.
Thank you. Moving on to item 4, which is approval of the minutes. Can I get motion to approve the minutes for the Joint Government Oversight and Health and Human Service Board meeting of December 2nd
Zinner
and
moves.
December 12th? Thank you.
Support Nard.
Perna, support.
Zinner moved us.
Support by Nard, or motion by Nard, supported by Perna. Please vote.
Motion passes 11-0.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to public participation. This is the first opportunity for public participation. That is for those who wish to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any item on today's agenda. The second opportunity for public participation for those who want to speak on any issue will be at the end of the meeting. Does anyone wish to speak at this time? Seeing no one, we will close public participation. At this time, we will ask Mr. Evans to come forward with a presentation on Martha T. Berry. And also, can I get a motion to receive and file?
Motion to receive and file.
Support. Okay.
Motion by Sabatini, supported by Grott. Hello.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you. I have a 3.5-minute presentation. You have a big agenda, so I will keep it short for you. Pleased to say that it is the great start of a new year. We did receive some of the money that had been short paid us over several years from the state. We received that and caught up everybody. We have one invoice outstanding for the county, and we'll be paying that off this first quarter. From a quality standpoint, we continue to have just outstanding quality numbers as represented by us being a 4-star facility. The one item that keeps us from a 5-star is we don't do a lot of Medicare, so we don't have a number large enough to get to that. And it's an important part of that. I will tell you that we're still in the top 7% in staffing levels, which I'm very excited about. And as many of you may have heard, we had our annual survey a couple of months back and received the best survey, second in a row, actually. The first one, we had five citations 2 years ago. This last year, we had 4 citations, all D-level citations, which makes us one of the best facilities in the state 2 years running. The average number of citations in the state of Michigan right now is 11.4, and it's 9.6 nationwide. So for a facility that size, it speaks to the culture that we have there. We're so excited about our leadership. And I don't mean the managers, I mean every heart that takes care of somebody as a leader in our building. For those of you that did attend a meeting, I want to thank you for that. Most recently, we had 100 Women Who Care who presented us with a check to the foundation for $4,000. That was pretty neat to be able to have them come in, and we learned a little bit about their organization, and they learned a little bit about us. And I think I have about 20 seconds left in that 3.5 minutes. So are there any questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And, you know, a shout out to the employees over at Martha T. Berry because they really do a phenomenal job. I know when I've been there, you can just tell how much they care. And that's what I think is most important. And especially in a facility taking care of our most vulnerable population, to really see how much they care, I think really says a lot. So anyone have any questions? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And please vote. Thank you.
Song votes yes.
Motion passes 12-0.
Now we will move on to the Veteran Service Fourth Quarter Report by Laura Rios. And can I get a motion to receive and file?
So moved by Nard.
Support.
Motion by Nard, support by Grot. Hello.
This was 3.5, I'll go 2.
All right, I like
Okay.
it. Good.
So this is my annual numbers, just my quarterly reporting. It, attached is the zip code report that you guys, you as a commission asked for. So now you have 4 quarters of numbers to look at for your zip codes that are in your area. Some things that we want to just mention and wrap up is that during during this quarter, we had, we do the hearing loss evaluations, and we had over 50. We had 50. Our financial coach met with over 22 people, 22 unique veterans, and then our PTSD evaluations were 27 for the quarter. I will tell you, our grants, the tax program's ramping up. I did receive the IRS grant. I did receive the MVAA grant. And I did put in our budget when we went through the budget process that I was expecting a grant from the state for taxes. And that just dropped Thursday to submit my application. So I have another week or so. I think it's like the 5th or 10th of February to submit my application for that new tax grant that the state is giving us. The big problem is it's going to be pretty much halfway through the tax season. So I have to kind of come up with and change my idea of what I was going to use it for. So their goal is to open up more locations, prepare more returns, and the grant's there for, you know, paying payroll for a supervisor and providing technology, new computers and things like that. But in the middle of a tax season, I'm not allowed to open up new sites. I'm not allowed to, you know, in the middle of everything, hire people. So this year we'll look at doing the technology and some other things, and next year, and extending the program through September. And then it's guaranteed to have 24 and 25. So I know I'm getting the grant again in 2025. And then we'll look at more locations, more personnel. Any questions?
Thank you. I don't see any questions. Anyone have any questions? No? All right. Well, thank you very much. As always, we appreciate it. All right. And that will be the end of presentations. Can we please vote?
Commissioner Wallace, did your vote come up? No. I can add it if you want a voice vote. Motion passes 12-0. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our first item under number 7, which is a budget amendment to the Office of Senior Services, Area of Aging, on Aging 1B contract agreement, caregiver meals for $126,000. Can I get a motion to recommend this to full board?
So move, Hall.
Or
Motion by Commissioner Ha and supported by Commissioner Perna. And how are you today, Sheila?
Good, thanks. How are
Good.
you?
Good.
Good. So this is a contract with AgeWell, which is AgeWay, which is the new title for AAA 1B. They've rebranded. They engaged in a contract with us to provide caregiver meals to individuals who are living with some of our clients that are getting home-delivered meals. So we're offering meals to the caregivers as well, so that when the meal comes, they can have a meal with the individual that's in the home-delivered meals. So it's exciting. Unfortunately, it just runs through the end of September through our fiscal year. So it's something we would love to continue, but it's short-lived, but it will serve about 18,000 meals to those individuals, so
All right, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Seeing no questions, can we please vote?
Minor.
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Perna.
question, when you indicate that the Meals on Wheels personnel will sit down and have dinner with,
It's the caregiver, so
The
it's not
caregiver?
actually the people delivering the meals. Oftentimes, our homebound individuals have caregivers that live with them or help take care of them. And so we're offering meals to those individuals that are caring for.
I thought for a minute the driver's gonna sit down and,
Yeah,
there'll be a
no,
delay
that
in
would
the-
be nice, but yeah, that's not in our budget.
You're still short with drivers, I understand, correct?
Yes, we're always, yeah, we probably have about, I don't know, 15 open routes, so we're still looking for drivers.
So these volunteers that would agree to be delivering the meals, is it in their area or could be in any area?
It could be in any area, yeah, yeah. We try to fit the best we can with the location that the volunteer lives in, but that's not always possible.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioner Nard?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to commend you for that. My daughter takes care of clients in the home, and I know how important it is to have them sit down and eat with them because her clients, she was just telling me the other day that he felt bad because she didn't have the time to sit and eat, and that's really good for their psyche and helping them. And I wish that you could find a way to move that going forward because as we age, it's going to be more and more need for that. So this is awesome. I was happy to see that.
Yeah, well, thank you.
today.
Yeah, it's very lonely to eat a meal
Yes.
all by yourself. And I think, you know, you have conversation that comes along with that meal and interaction. So if we can provide the caregivers those meals, I think it's a benefit.
Yeah, just a quick story. She had one client that was really depressed and didn't want to live, and because she started sitting down eating with them, they have a new, lease on life now because she comes every day and sit and eat with them, and that's really important. I really like this.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
If I hit the lottery, I'm going to send you some money.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you, Commissioner Nard. Thank you, and I see no other speakers. Could we please vote?
Motion passes 12-0.
All right, we're moving on to correspondence. We have Area of Aging, Agency on Aging 1B, name change to AgeWays Nonprofit Senior Services. Can I get a motion to receive and file?
So moved by Nard.
Support Van Sickle.
Motion by Nard, supported by Van Sickle. Can we please vote?
Chair, can you call a voice vote? The system just went down.
Everyone in favor, say
Hey,
any nays? All right, motion passes 12-0. All right. And we have, that's it. So we'll move on to Finance, Audit, and Budget Committee.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item is 10A, presentations, Central Intake and Assessment Center update, January 2024. I need a motion to receive and file.
So moved by Nard.
Support, Hall.
Moved by Commissioner Nard, supported by Commissioner Haw. And we have Deputy Delden, the Sheriff. Everybody's here.
Thank you, Commissioner, Chair Sabatini, and good afternoon, Commissioners. I just wanted to restate our commitment to all of you to bring you solid information every month. So every month in one of your board packets is a dashboard so that you can track the project, and that every quarter from this point forward, we would come and bring the professional services team that you hired, and we will do an in-person presentation to give you a little bit more high-level overview of where we're at. So again, I'm just here to restate the commitment. Sheriff wanted to say a few words, and then we'll bring the team up.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just wanted to emphasize the fact that we, as a county, have put together a great team. You know, with your support, PIA, SVT, Plant Moran Rail Point, and now Granger Construction is a very, very solid team. We've been working together for the last couple months, making sure that we're hitting all the high points and making sure that this facility has everything that's needed and will work for Macomb County now and into the future. So with that, I will turn it over to Joe.
Fantastic. Joe Asperger, Plant Moran Real Point. Thank you for having us here this afternoon. Just wanted to, if we could click to the next slide, just give you an update. As Sheriff Wickersham had indicated, several of your team members have been brought on board. But on the next slide, relative to procurement status, there still will be some additional, I'm so sorry. Thank you. there still are some additional packages that, and some team members that will be brought on yet this year, including our environmental consultant, which Mr. Treppa will be talking about here shortly. We do have a commissioning agent which will help to make sure that all of the systems are integrated and tie in and work post-occupancy, as well as some other quality assurance type consultants that will be brought on as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to our design team from Partners in Architecture to give you kind of a quick overview of where we are from a design standpoint.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mike Malone, Partners in Architecture, and we have Darren McKenna here as well with us. Right, real exciting stuff. Hopefully you're all smiling. Okay. So just to restate some of the goals of the project, you guys have heard this many times. You're going to hear it every time we come back. Like, we're trying to stay narrowly focused on the objectives here. I'm just going to highlight a couple quick things. Our overall goal as the project team and the county to provide a new central intake and assessment center. Obviously, you've heard that, right? To provide comprehensive universal screening of all individuals, to properly place those individuals, to inform them of release decisions, and to increase safety of the staff and the inmates. This facility is going to accomplish all of these things with a big focus on medical and mental health. As far as the programming of the facility, we spent a fair amount of time reviewing the overall needs from our previous assessments back starting in 2018 moving forward. We spent, I want to say, about 8 to 10 weeks reconfirming the program. The slide you see up right now, those are all the components that are as part of this new facility. Public lobby and secure passage, staff support, intake and release. There is a court in the facility as well. Intake housing, medical and mental health, community corrections, and some general population housing. Roughly just shy of 180,000 square feet of new space. To recap the bed count, the current tower that you have now has about 900 beds, and the new medical, mental health, and general population beds are 303 total, so the total of 1,203 beds once we're done with this beautiful project. You've seen this diagram before. We're going to talk a little bit about demolition. We're demolishing pretty much the north side of the site, starting with the annex, maximum security, D block, and the rehab facilities all highlighted there on the slide. Just under 80,000 square feet of demolition. Sounds like a very simple thing to do, but it's very difficult and complex. We have a great construction manager here who's going to make sure we don't do anything that we shouldn't do, and we do it in an appropriate sequence as well to keep the facility secure and up and running 24/7. Site diagram you see there. The highlighted section is the new facility, the CIAC, Central Intake and Assessment Center. The area highlighted in gray, I guess it's not really highlighted, is the existing jail tower. You'll see there is a new entrance plaza on the south side of this new facility. You could maybe recognize it if you're on the campus there. There's two very large trees we're trying to save as part of the overall design concept, and those are in that center island there. The way the building is organized, it's really 4 levels plus a partial basement. So the pink section there is really the first floor level. That's where the intake is, the vehicle sally port, health services, and the housing are all located on the 3 levels above. I'm going to go to the next slide here. This is a high-level diagram of the first floor facility. The large red arrow there is the main entrance to the facility. That's a public lobby. The court is accessed there. Community corrections is also there, as well as the jail office. If somebody was to come to the facility to bail somebody out, they would come in that entrance, go to the jail office, take care of business, and head right out. Same would go for a court facility. You would be screened from a security station in order to get into the court, but you will have free access into that lobby. All the other areas are really secure or highly secure spaces. So you need specific credentials to get back in those locations. The next floor here, second floor, is primarily medical housing and intake housing. So the section on the left side of the plan is medical housing, and it's male and female combined together. There's about 24, or there is 24 beds in that facility, or that section of the facility, excuse me. And on the right side of the plan is the intake housing. So once individuals are admitted into the facility, they will be brought into those sections, either female or male, 28 beds in each of those locations. Third floor, very exciting. General population housing. We have 2 equally sized housing pods of 56 beds each. And they could really be used for male or female. Obviously only one at a time, but if you had an influx of one or the other, you have the flexibility to use that as you see fit. Fourth floor is the top floor, and this is really the specialty housing, if you will. The pink section is the medical detox area. This is kind of like a dormitory style housing area. So there's small pods that are in an open area, pretty much 4 beds to an area, 38 total beds in that section. The other 2 areas or 3 areas are either female mental health or male mental health. And the female has a total of 26 beds, and the male has a total of 47 beds. Trying to zip through this really quick. Capital improvements are also part of this project, so there is a sum of money established for helping items or replacing or improving items within the existing facility. A couple of the items there's gun range, motor control center for the facility, generators, fire alarms, excuse me, and a lot of piping and sanitary, very fun piping replacement projects that are going to be very disruptive and messy, but mostly very needed, I guess, in the facility. Overall project sequence, you may have seen this before at one of our our initial kickoff meetings. The highlighted section is kind of in the middle, is where we are in the design and construction document process. We've completed our schematic design phase. We've turned over our documents to the construction manager. They're in the process of doing their cost analysis, and we're currently in the design development phase. As we get through these items, our documents are going to become increasingly detailed and refined. Granger will be doing additional estimates as they move forward, and eventually we'll get to the bidding and procurement phase, which I'll let Jeff talk about here in a minute. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I am Jeff Havernack with Granger Construction. Nice to see everybody again. I just wanted to highlight some of our involvement now that we've been brought on board. As you recall, we've been on board since about the beginning of December, so it's been approximately a month and a half. Primarily, we are focused on creating a benchmark estimate. We've received schematic level documentation from partners as well as their other design consultants. So we've been working diligently to align the budget with our cost estimation. And we are mostly through that process, just doing some final alignment here, but that is going well. The other key activity is developing the milestone construction schedule. So we want to ensure that based on our procurement plan and based on the work that needs to take place, we're allowing the appropriate amount of time, and we're setting some of those interim milestones to ensure that, you know, by the time we hit the end date, we've accomplished all of the construction tasks that we need to. That leads me into the procurement and subcontracting plan. So certainly we're focused on long lead material procurement. There's other components such as, you know, stormwater detention systems that have to go under the new parking area. So one of the logistics planning pieces we're working on is When we begin demo, we're going to take over the existing secure parking. We need to provide new secure parking for staff as well as construction personnel. We need to get that stormwater detention under that parking lot. So how do we pull that work forward to allow logistically those movements to take place on site? More about logistics and phasing. Mike mentioned the capital improvements. You know, there's the kind of not beautiful work of replacing a lot of piping, but that takes a lot of coordination because obviously we have an occupied facility and we need to make sure that we're taking over portions of the building that operationally they can support those movements and we can contain our work to a confined area. So that sequencing is very important. As that work gets defined and developed, we create those phasing plans and then we bid that work out accordingly. Lastly, constructability reviews. We want to make sure, or sorry, second to last here. We want to make sure that what we're building is detailed appropriately and we can, you know, essentially put it on the open market and bid it and folks can build it. So that's what constructability reviews entail. And then lastly, just planning for safety, planning for quality control. We have a lot of technologies that we implement through construction. So making sure those are thought through ahead of time and we can implement those once we get into construction. I'm going to turn it over to Joe briefly. He's going to talk about our project schedule, starting with the design phase and procurement, and then we'll talk a little more about bid packaging.
Thanks, Jeff. So just to highlight from a project standpoint, these are some things that we've reiterated to you in the last few dashboard reports. So we do try to give you a high level of where we are. So the project is tracking on schedule at this point. The blue line here in January kind of reflects where we are currently. So we have, you know, as Mike had alluded to earlier, we have gone through and validated the program, refined all of that with the Sheriff's Department and the other stakeholders, and working with partners in architecture to work through the conceptual and schematic design phase. So that as they showed you here, it is very generalized and very conceptualized to understand, you know, what we are looking for materials, what we are for the overall massing of the building, the spatial relationships and everything else. We now will be moving into the design development phase and have already started into that. That will actually begin to start to refine some of those details. And we'll do that in conjunction with the schedule and with Granger to make sure that the cost aligned with that. So we're in the process of working through a schematic design estimate and anticipating what those costs will be moving forward based on the information that we've determined thus far. And so as we move through that design development phase, we'll move into construction documents where we've really defined what that design is, and the construction documents really just get into the real details of what it's going to do and how Jeff and his team would be able to build it. And so Jeff will kind of take in a little bit to understand what our plan is relative to kind of procuring those services. But all of this is in the context of maintaining our really aggressive schedule that the federal funding, the ARPA dollars have put on us. And so this plan is moving through so that we have everything procured and under contract by the end of this calendar year, so that we then in turn can have everything done and constructed and paid out for the ARPA portions of it by December of 2026.
Okay, so with that, we are contemplating 3 primary bid packages. There may be more if we have some minor one-off items that we want to bring to the board for approval. The last time we met, we talked about, hey, we don't want to get here at the 11th hour in December of this year before the ARPA commitment deadline and ask for approval without appropriate time for review. So I think the strategy of having multiple bid packages along the way helps that process. We'll have a GMP amendment. If you view the board there, we're looking at the first one in June. So that would encompass demo and some utility work, as well as some other small bid packages. There's another in July, which would be probably foundations, maybe structural steel. Not totally defined yet. And then the final one would be in November. And we're leaving that December one open just in case there's something that trails into that time frame, just to ensure that we have everything to this board for review and approval with appropriate time. And then obviously that leads to the ARPA commitment deadline of December of this year. Any questions?
Yeah, we'll turn this over to questions that you may have. But as Jeff had indicated with this procurement plan, the idea is to be able to pull some of these things ahead early in the process. And so, as we had mentioned, we are doing an estimating process, and throughout the entire design will be kind of an ongoing, so it'll be a continuous checkpoint as information is. So we'll have an understanding of what the budget is throughout. So at this particular time, the project is tracking on budget. We do have appropriate contingencies in place throughout to keep things moving forward, as well as the schedule. The design team is working, frantically to put together all of those details, and the rest of us are looking and tracking along with each of that. So turn it to you if you have any questions for any of the members.
Thank you, everyone, for the explanation and just getting us the information for us to review timely. I know there's a lot of questions here, but obviously it's a team effort, and thank you for the sheriff and the executive's office for working with us on this. I think the dashboard is huge, and it's very, for me, visual, easy to read and understand. So first commissioner on the list is Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Gentlemen, first of all, I want to personally apologize for not being able to be there at the intake assessment when you guys did it. I believe Commissioner Hall was there, and he's agreed to share that information with commissioners here if we have any questions regarding it. He was very attentive at the time. The second thing I want to mention is when Granger comes up, and I think, Jeff, this falls into you, when you give us estimates, you've got down here, your bold print is out there about what you're doing. I look at the estimate sheets, and I got to put on my bifocals in order to look at the numbers.
Well, those were just visual aids.
It'd be nice to see the numbers, too, in bold print also.
Absolutely.
And my other question is, how much of the ARPA money have you spent so far?
Well, none, actually. We've been brought on board. We have not spent any. Maybe
Somebody else can
Andy
answer that
or,
question?
Yeah, Joe could answer that question.
Anybody's willing to step up here?
No, that's actually correct. The ARPA funding has not been spent as of this time. Do you want to add any more?
Sure. No, Andy Fountain with Plant Moran Real Point. To date, we have not committed or spent any of the ARPA funding that's been allocated to this project.
And when will that money be allocated to start being spent?
Yes, sir. As soon as we start awarding the bid packages that Jeff had alluded to earlier, we'll issue a contract amendment to Granger Construction, and then they'll start to invoice against that commitment. So approximately, I'll say Q3 of this year, those invoices will start.
So who's paying for all of this right now?
Currently, the commitments that you have are being funded through your general fund.
Thank you. The other question I have is,
I would caveat that with, Mr. Smeagol could also opine on that if there are any clarifications of that. That's my understanding.
you know how much money of the general fund has been spent so far?
That, I don't have that exact number. We can research that and follow up with you.
Would you please?
Sure.
The other thing, you mentioned something about this being an assessment center, and I guess everybody here sees it on the news. Everybody that commits a crime or has a problem, it's always a medical problem, but it's mental. It's mental. Are we going to have enough beds in that facility to house these people, but not only house these people now, is there something in the expansion, if necessary, without going into another big building? I guess that would be I don't know if I explained that correctly. Okay, can you expand what you have in the mental facility without putting up a new building? Anybody want to take that?
I'm going to let the sheriff
Sheriff
opine on that
Wickersham.
one, please.
Yes, we will. Obviously, we've had the criminal justice analysis that we looked at back in 2018, and we looked at the numbers, and the numbers are consistent. And we believe the amount of beds that we are proposing will handle the facility now and into the future. Obviously, we have the other floor of that general population that if the mental health and medical side of the house doubles, triples, we'd be able to adapt and put that there. And we still have 900 beds in the tower to put the other individuals.
Thank you. So I'm going to get an estimate from Granger, only in bigger print, And I'm also going to get how much money's been spent, or being spent out of the general fund so far. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. One clarification I wanted to offer is that when your inquiry regarding dollars spent to date, that information's also been communicated to you in the dashboard report. So you can reference those in the interim, but we will follow up.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. I know you said you're going to be doing your, putting your package together. With watching the business reports and the news, do you have any expectation of where your numbers are going to be in reference to from when you started this project a few months ago? Do you think, I mean, obviously, do you think it's going to be where you expected it to be or higher?
So if I understand your question correctly, you're talking about just labor
Cost,
labor
product,
cost and
everything.
escalation,
Yeah.
making sure that's factored. Yes, we have projected based on our trend, we measure escalation over, the last several years, decades. And we've watched those costs really rise dramatically over the course of, COVID timeframe. In some bid categories, those are starting to level off. Of course, we have some labor shortages that we're still contending with. This is also a federally funded project, so there's a federal prevailing wage that we have to make sure we are accounting for, and all of that is built into our estimate.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Chair. Andy, maybe you can explain the ARPA commitment, the deadlines in the commitment for the ARPA dollars.
Yeah, so right now, the current guidance from U.S. Treasury is that ARPA allocated funding must be committed by December 31st of 2024. And then those commitments must be paid in full by December 31st of 26. Right now, the timeline that we brought up for you today is within those parameters, within those timelines.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to congratulate the entire team. I sat through the presentation. It was very well received, and I think adding Don to the team is another great element that gives you the back experience. I do hope that Mark Dowdland is not allowed to do any architectural things the way he put that sign up over there. So the fact that you guys are coming back on a monthly basis, I believe Mark Hackle's comment was largest undertaking of a project we've had in Macomb County. So keeping us informed at that level, I think will make for a much smoother transition and hopefully no surprises at the end. Thank you, Chair. That's all I have.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a little confused why we're spending general fund money instead of ARPA money first. And maybe no one in the room is eligible to explain that, but I'll be forwarding that to Mr. Smeagol.
Commissioner Van Sickle, we'll get that information to the Finance Department, but we should go back to the resolution that this board passed about where the money was coming from for this first period. And I believe in that resolution, it was all general fund money to start with.
Thank you. I'll have to go review that. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner, it's also on the dashboard. They do have, primarily this is mostly professional fees initially, as Mark stated there. So that what was initially committed by this board. Commissioner Perna.
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to tag on what Commissioner Romano was asking the sheriff was, if we do not have enough beds in the intake center because of mental issues, will we use the jail? And then reverse question, if we don't have enough room for our inmates that are not mentally, are we going to use the intake center for them?
So again, we don't have the crystal ball. We're using data-driven facts of past incarcerations and those that are related to medical issues, mental health issues. And again, we've come up with the best numbers that we currently have. Obviously, we could build it as big as you want, and you're never gonna, I could always say we have plenty of room. Right now, the central intake assessment is geared for dealing with those individuals with the medical and mental health issues. As far as incarcerating those that don't have medical and mental health issues, we have 900 beds in the tower. We're running an average daily population of about 850. So we have room to grow. So, right here, I could tell you that with the data and the investment and all of the experts that have come together, we are very confident with the number of beds in the central intake and assessment. I mean, could that 20, 30 years down the road expand? Yes. But if I was here going to plan for 20, 30 years, this number would be astronomical, and I'm sure every one of you would probably vote no. So we've got to start with what we need right now, and this is the good solution.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sheriff, don't go anywhere yet. Looking at the designs of this, when we previously talked about doing a whole brand new jail, we had talked about a certain type of system for the deputies to be able to keep an eye on the inmates. I can't remember, it was direct
Supervision versus indirect, yes.
These layouts look like that's what we were going for in the past. Is that true? Where are our deputies going to be placed? I'm looking at the designs and I don't see, deputy desk A, deputy desk B. Can you point that
I mean, can somebody pull that back up, Kyle?
Sorry, Sheriff, I would ask
No,
a
that's
question
all
to
right.
make you play with the technology. Because I see the support areas section.
Yeah, they're on the floors, and I don't know if these have. Yeah, they're there.
Should be a layout.
Momentarily, okay.
'Cause I see cells and interview and court and gen pop.
Yeah,
I
that's
just
that's.
They're in the day room spaces primarily. There should be.
some nice tables and chairs in the middle of the room.
It's gonna be hard to see.
Oh, it's dashed in.
It's dashed in there. All right.
You see the area that says court, it's like green?
Yes.
So just adjacent to that, there's a half circle, kind of dashed in, very faint.
Yes,
That's
that's
the
it.
officer station right there, so they have a view of the whole space.
Perfect.
And that's typical in each pod.
Got it. Okay. Thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just to kind of, Sheriff, hold on, quick question. I've got you guys up there. So in one of the layouts, it looks like on each floor, we have the court on each floor. And I was under the impression the court was just going to be on the first floor.
That's just a fresh air court, so that's like an outdoor space for the inmates to get some fresh air. It's not a court per se.
Okay. And then the current jail entrance, that will stay?
The current jail entrance will be the sheriff's main entrance, and that'll be for administrative, my office, records, detective bureau.
Okay.
And that will stay, yes.
Okay, great. All right. Seeing no other questions, I think that was a very good update for the first one. Obviously, there's some comment on some additional things that we'd like, and hope we see that in the next dashboard. Please vote. Thank you, everybody.
Motion passes 12-0.
Okay, next item is, looks like an agreement here with ABF Environmental. This is for the Central Intake and Assessment Center project for $31,750. I need a motion to recommend this to full board.
So moved.
Moved by
Board.
Commissioner Hall, supported by Commissioner Lucido. Ben, looks like you're talking about this one.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I don't have any pretty pictures for you guys, unfortunately. This one's pretty benign, but this is one of those professional services or consultants that they talked about briefly in the presentation we just heard. So item 11A is an agreement with ABF Environmental Consultants to perform pre-demolition hazardous material assessments in the jail. Annex, D-block, rehab, and maximum security, which are all areas of the facility that are slated for demolition in the central intake project. Hazardous materials surveys are required in the state of Michigan prior to demolition. Conducting surveys early in the project is critical to the pre-planning of demolition schedules, as we will be able to include any hazardous material abatement needed. ABF Environmental has significant experience in the jail facility from a variety of projects, big and small, over at least last 10 years or so. So we think they'll be very efficient in handling these hazardous material assessments through our building. This item 11A, will be funded through the Central Intake and Assessment Center project.
Ben, quick question. Is this, funds for this, is this coming out of general fund dollars or is this coming out of ARPA funds?
Andy, this is general fund, correct? Yeah. We
General
move forward. Yeah. So we can get it done right now.
Okay, seeing no questions, please vote. Do you want a copy?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben.
Details or what?
He's getting the steps in.
Mark, you forgot one of your pictures there.
We'll pick it up in the morning.
We want you to practice.
Which one do I hit?
It just blocks it.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Okay, next is Resolution 2024-11881. It's a resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement establishing the Macomb County Land Bank Authority. I need a motion to recommend this to full board. Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Hall. I know we have the treasurer here, deputy treasurer, I believe a presentation and all of the above, so. Good afternoon.
Good
Treasurer.
afternoon, Commissioners. Happy to be here, and we're here for a special cause, the Macomb County Land Bank Authority. And I thought that because it's so important, we brought a staff of good quality people up to and including the State Land Bank people. We have Joe Rivet and we have Jeff Huntington from the State Land Bank. We're going to give you a PowerPoint presentation. I do believe personally that this Land Bank Authority, if you approve it, will be very beneficial for the county, for all parts of the county. It's important regarding so much that's going on today with our properties and being able to put them in a proper perspective. The Land Bank Authority can do that. I've got my whole staff up here that are working on it. I've got my Chief Deputy, Skip Macaron. I have Paige Bashand, Christina Miller, and
If we don't amend it.
the State Bank people, Jeff Huntington and Joe Rivet. They're going to give you the PowerPoint. But first of all, I think my Chief Deputy wants to say a few words. Skip?
Thanks, Mr. Treasurer. Mr. Huntington comes to you today with over 20 years' experience in this area for the state. And Mr. Rivet is the Director of the Michigan State Land Bank Authority. He's going to be presenting for your information and to answer any specific questions, which he also will. Just by way of background, he's previously served as Deputy Director of the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. He's been the Bay County Drain Commissioner. He was twice elected as the Bangor County Township Supervisor. He served as a state representative for the Bay County community from 1999 to 2004. He has facilitated the construction of urban senior housing developments, domestic violence shelters, a public ice arena, various residential and commercial developments. He's well-versed in planning and zoning, construction codes, ordinance enforcement, land use, public property acquisition, neighborhood enterprise zones, tax reversion, downtown development authorities, tax increment financing, and utility management. And I want to thank him personally on behalf of the treasurer and our staff in the county of Macomb for taking time out of his busy schedule to come down here today to present to you personally. It's not something we would ordinarily expect, but we feel it's important enough to have asked him. He felt it was important enough to do so. Mr. Rivet. Mr. Rivet.
Well, good afternoon. That was an awfully kind introduction. I am Joseph Rivet. I've been the director of the State Land Bank for about, since mid of 2023. Mr. Huntington has mentioned has been around for 20 years, so I think we can probably answer any questions that you might have. I am an old legislator. I actually voted for the State Land Bank Authority land legislation, so it gives you an idea that I come with some history and expertise. Our primary job is to take unproductive land and make it productive, right? Property nobody else wants. And so when I think you've all seen, probably received the slides. These slides demonstrate sort of the work that we do, right? Property that nobody else wants becomes something that we take at the State Land Bank and work very hard to try to improve. So land banking is, the definition, as you'll note, is, just simply aggregating land with the intent of making it developable, making it more valuable for communities. Land banks in the state of Michigan, based on PA 258 of 03, are quasi sort of governmental entities that manage and essentially do all phases of work to take these properties and make them, again, productive for the communities that they reside in. As noted, PA 258 of 03 was the land banking statute, created the whole process, but most of our work is related to forfeiture of land or tax reversion, as you can imagine, so that had to be improved a little bit. So that act was passed, and the General Property Tax Act recognizes that we don't pay taxes or special assessments on our land. Primarily, we get it because people didn't pay their taxes, so we are not burdened with the requirement of paying taxes so that we are in a better position to make that land more attractive to future development. Here's a quick summary of the state land banks across the state. We, of course, have jurisdiction across the entire state of Michigan, but we have 51 partner land banks. You'd be 52. And we have great relationships with all of our land banks. I think the important thing to point out is that we have land banks from Genesee County and the city of Detroit that has over 60,000 parcels in its inventory, to small communities that have little to no inventory, and they just have their treasurer doing a little bit of work on the side trying to improve and market derelict properties. The powers of the land bank established in statute, of course, we can hold or sell, demolish, construct, do about anything we can that's necessary on an individual piece of property. We can convey easements and options, so we have the ability to, as you'll note, quiet title and make sure that the land is clean for resale or redevelopment. We can lease property if necessary, as I said, it's exempt from all taxation and special assessments throughout the process. Why we hold the land. One of the things that we like to point out is that there's only a few things that land banks can't do, like that a normal property owner can do. And you'll note, we can't do anything with casinos. I think casinos were a hot topic in 03, so I'm sure that got slipped in there somewhere in the statute. But we can't exercise power of eminent domain or, as noted, tax or special assessed properties. That's reserved for local units of government. I spent 25 years in local government. That's a very valuable thing that only local units should be able to do. So our relationship with local land banks, and I'm moving through this quickly, I think you've already seen these slides. We enter into the interlocal agreement as brought to you today. That's part of the statute. It's our requirement. So we have formalized relationships with all of our local land banks. Although we have agreements with, each land bank operates independently. You're creating your own size of your authority board, save a very few things in statute, like the county treasurer has to serve on the board. You have a significant amount of flexibility in how your land bank operates and what you do. We're there primarily to assist and support. Right now, we're moving a significant amount of money, $150 million in blight elimination, through the state land bank mostly to local land banks to address that issue across the state. But we also do some education and training. We have program and project expertise. We have folks who've done demolition for 20 years on our team. They can help local land banks if necessary. And we are very involved in sort of the establishment and growth of the Michigan Land Banks, Association of Land Banks, as they are also a terrific support mechanism for all our local land banks, and something I think all of our local land banks appreciate. We also have people on staff to do some unique and specialized development. We have a development expert, TIF expert. As I said, somebody who's done 20 years of demolition expertise on brownfields and TIFs. And so we can offer that level of support to all local land banks as well, and we're happy to do that as requested. So as a quasi, governmental unit, we can do just about most things that a local unit or a government can do. Borrow money, apply for grants, as you'll note, enter contracts, invest money. And the statute, of course, gives that catch-all phrase, whatever necessary to be able to accomplish the goals of the legislation. We like to think of ourselves primarily as a tool to help communities, economic and community development. That's what we are. We're a tool for your toolbox, right? And so we can do these things. We can acquire property, we can assemble property, but primarily we're a bank, right? We're a depository. Property that nobody else wants, we end up with it, right? Old prison sites, toxic, polluted land, sites, areas of communities that are no longer marketable or valuable, that have become dilapidated, they come to us. We're the bank for that. And because of the tools and the statute, we have the ability to do some unique things to assist in that process of redevelopment and community development. So, it's helpful to be able to quiet title sometimes. Sometimes it's very helpful not to pay taxes on a piece of property for a couple of years while a development process is ongoing. Every single property that's in the land bank is TIF eligible, and sometimes being able to use that TIF for infrastructure improvements or somehow environmental improvements, things of that nature, allows that property to be more valuable. So we are essentially a tool in a toolbox. And the beauty of it is each community can use it as often or as little as they want. It's simply on the shelf, available for their benefit and use, and they can use it as necessary. Not required to, but we know that there's some real opportunity utilizing the land banks. So as I said, we are, our approach is to simply help communities, and in our case, of course, state, properties that the state has, to organize and fill roles that are going to help the development of your community. Land banking initially was, right, tear down a house, have a lot, sell it to the next door neighbor. We used to call that land banking 1.2, right? We took care of a blighted property, and now your community looks a little better, gave it to the next door neighbor, he cuts the grass, everybody's better off. But we've evolved into utilizing all the tools that the legislature gave us to do projects and enhance community development. And so we want to be partners with communities. We want to be partners with the development community. We want to move communities forward working together. And that's how we operate, and I think land banks across the state universally do the same thing. How do we help our communities do better? And we use these powers and collaboration opportunities to make positive change. We just put this up as well. I mean, blighted, we spend a lot of our time dealing with blighted and derelict properties. And most of the land that comes through the land bank properties are tax reverted. And so those are an integral part of our work. And I think part of the reason it's so valuable for Macomb County is that we all have tax reverted and foreclosed properties. And this is a tool all the communities can use to improve the development of their areas. There are some unique things. We put some things like this in boxes. Adjacent properties can be included. We want to make sure you're aware of all the opportunities and tools that exist. So we've added a couple of these boxes just to provide that information for you. So what's it mean for you? You can use this tool to do a number of things as mentioned, as listed here on there. environmental, environmental assessments, you can do that. You can do blight, site preparation, acquisition. All those things can be done by your local land bank to make it far easier for property to be improved and more productive in your communities. So I moved through that very quickly. I wanted to make sure we saved time for questions. I did point out the 4 properties that we have in the state land bank in Macomb County as we speak. And these are actually quite representative of properties that we have throughout the state and most land banks have. We have a former landfill on 2030 in Ryan. We have a Part 201 contaminated site in Harrison Township, Hamlin. And then we have a couple of residential lots in the city of Warren. And when we look at these, we do our best to find what's the best possible development for those. And so, for instance, the, residential infill would make the most sense for those spots in the city of Warren. And the contaminated sites are a little more challenging. We get as creative as we can, but as you can imagine, development on there is significantly challenging. We have Superfund sites in our inventory at the state, so we're dealing with EPA. We deal with Eagle on an ongoing basis, but we try to be as creative and positive as possible to even do something on those properties to be able to generate some tax revenue for those communities. So, Jeff's here. Jeff's happy to answer any questions. And I do want to compliment Treasurer Rocca and his Skip. The whole team have worked very closely with us. There's been a lot of communication, and we feel very fortunate to create another partnership for the land banks in the state of Michigan.
Well, Jeff is the, what's your title, Jeff?
I'm the operations manager with the
20
state land bank.
years, and Joe's been with them about 3 or 4, 5 years.
Just since 2023.
Okay, so he's got a lot of knowledge. Just a couple of points you want to address.
Sure. My director, Joseph, did a great job of kind of representing what a land bank does. I'm trying to think of kind of a couple other things that we can think of that we do always ensure that we work with our local communities. So when a land bank does need some assistance, we have a lot of those training programs that we can come in and help with those local places, or we can help at the county as well. So we're just here to assist in any way that we can.
Great.
So you can see, we brought these experts here, and you can see Joe's an expert. He really told you all the points that we need. It would be very beneficial for the county of Macomb to have a land bank for all the cities and all the townships. It would be so beneficial for the county because we could work with all your cities and all your townships that could use some help. So we encourage you to approve the motion that's before you for the land bank, and it will definitely be helpful for Macomb County. So thanks for hearing us out and giving us the opportunity for presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Treasurer. Got a lot of commissioners here on the list. I'm going to just kick this off because your last slide actually was my question. So the properties that are to be determined, are they decided by the state? Are they decided by the county? I know you had 4 properties on the presentation. Is that where you'd like us to start, or is that at the discretion of the county which sites they would determine?
Well, those sites are currently in our inventory. The state land bank has about 2,800 parcels in its inventory. We are always open to conversations with the local if they want to take over those sites. A couple of those sites are pretty challenging. So, if they want to remain with the state land bank, that's certainly possible. The sites in Warren are more generic, I guess. So, if a Macomb County Land Bank wants to take those, we'd certainly be open to those conversations. We're happy to work with locals, whatever's in their best interest, and we support. So, but then, I think probably there's a number of properties owned by municipalities throughout Macomb County that would easily be usefully transferred to a land bank.
Okay, great. Commissioner Hall.
Thank you, Chair. I can tell you as the former chairman of SMDA, getting somebody to take over that landfill is not gonna happen. You guys know that, and we know that.
We're awfully charming at the State Land Bank, so
Yeah,
just
you'd have to be.
stay tuned.
Two quick questions. The treasurer currently has a very successful, well-appreciated tax, I don't want to use the term forfeiture, where you assist residents that are having tax issues to work through them so they can remain in their homes. This does not impact that at all, correct?
No.
Okay, that's one question. Two, the elephant in the room has always been the controversy we have read about Detroit's land bank program. Back and forth, who owned it, who did what, whatever it was. In talking to our corporate counsel, he has indicated the formation of the authority was worked on with our Attorney General, you guys, their team. So we have built safeguards. My understanding is we have built safeguards in to not run into the same controversy based on lessons learned. Now, I can give that question to Skip if you want, or Frank.
There is one municipal land bank in the state of Michigan, that's the city of Detroit, so they are different. At this point, we anticipate Grand Rapids will join sometime in 2024, and they have powers granted to them by the city through ordinance that are outside the typical scope of land banks across the state. So in terms of how you're developing it, that's up to you all. But I can tell you that Detroit is unique and different than the other 50 land banks. And they do, for instance, a blight program that exists nowhere else in the state. I actually had a lot of questions when I met with the folks at the Detroit Land Bank about that program. And that was granted to them by their city commission. So I think, from a purely philosophical and structural standpoint, you'd be very different.
Anybody else?
Frank's going to come up, but with the help of Frank and going through with the Attorney General and us looking at it from a practical standpoint, and John Shopka having intimate familiarity with the issues in Detroit, and Frank also being aware of it, we put in guardrails, and some of those guardrails are not only the appointing authorities as to the confirmation of nominations, the selection by the board of an individual of their choosing, and the ability of the board upon a hearing and good cause shown removing anybody that appears to be errant in their duties on this authority. So there's a lot of safety guardrails, if you will, in our agreement that do not exist in the city of Detroit. And I don't want to disparage the city of Detroit or their land bank, but I wouldn't have touched it with a 10-foot pole as an individual.
Thank you. Hi, Frank.
Frank Krisha from Corporation Counsel. Yeah, that's when we set this up, we basically used the state's model. And we adjusted it to the county. Now, for example, you're talking about issues where a land bank would have problems with, the ethics or something like that. I put in this draft that the land bank, even though it's an independent governmental agency, would be under Macomb County's ethics ordinance, and it would apply to everyone. Why should we create our own ethics policy for the land bank when we can use Macomb County's? So that was put into that. And if you believe that your ethics ordinance and policies are sufficient to control that, I think it's sufficient to handle the land bank. So why should, again, the model policy had the authority, the land bank authority, create its own policy. I said, let's use the county's policy. Why create something new? And then we put in a generic provision here saying that to the extent possible, all of the land bank's policies shall be consistent with the ordinances and the policies of Macomb County. And that's in section 4.15. So if you believe that your policies and ordinances are sufficient to control ethics, those will be consistent with the same policies in the land bank. And the land bank's going to be different. I mean, some of the policies won't apply because the amount of money the land bank holds will be significantly less than what the county holds. So it'll be scaled back, but it'll be consistent with the county's policies. And that's how I see this happening. Instead of reinventing this or giving somebody the authority to change things independently, it has to be done by a board. The authority board is appointed. Everybody has a voice on the authority board. The local communities at large, the executive, the treasurer, and this board. So everybody has a voice, and there's reporting requirements that are consistent. All the reports, everything that the authority will do will be public. The meetings will be public. Everything will be reported to this board as required by this agreement. So I think there's sufficient safeguards. I've dealt with a number of investigations into this county, and I have experience in that. And I worked with the parties here to put these safeguards in place so we don't have one here. And I don't see one happening here the way we have this written.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Joe, I think I had the pleasure of speaking to you on a three-way with Deputy Macaron at one time, way back when. First of all, I want to thank you guys for coming down, especially in this wonderful weather we had from Lansing. That was nice of you to come down here. We appreciate that. We've heard of all these good things that the land bank can do, and Mr. Hall happened to bring up Detroit, which is a completely different animal. You know, I don't know if all of you remember, but I do going back. There was the old saying about last one out of Detroit, turn off the lights. Well, that has changed. You know, Detroit is coming back, as we all know, but there's still a lot of property out there, and I mean a lot of property, and I don't think we can come close to comparing what we have in property that could go into a land bank. You can put half of Detroit into the land bank and still have some left over, but they're taking care of that. So anyway, my question to you, Joe, if I may call you Joe, because I'm Joe, and that's a Joe. Absolutely. So we got a lot of Joes here. So you've given us all the good stuff about this land bank. Now give me the downside. And there are downsides, and I'd like to hear them.
Very few.
Okay.
And I say that because you can create this land bank and put it on the shelf and never use it, right?
Right.
I mean, so some of the issues with the land bank, and let me reiterate, we have 2,800 or so parcels in our inventory. Detroit has 65 or 70,000 parcels, right? So imagine the scale and difficulty that community deals with, and that doesn't include Wayne County. That's a whole nother, tens of thousands of parcels. But so what our challenges have been primarily funding, and I say that because, as you can imagine, there are tens of thousands of blighted parcels across the state of Michigan. We, even though this 150 million that we got is just a dent in the amount that exists. In most communities, including the state of Michigan, it's a challenge for us to get funding, right? So general funds to our organization at the State Land Bank is hit and miss. Last year we got $2 million, but as you know, we've been in the great cash giveaway, I like to say, for the last 3 years in government, so we all can smile about that. But we've had funding shortfalls in the past. We actually think about how we generate funds all the time in our work. So the primary method to do that, and some might consider this challenging, is that we have a program in the state of Michigan that allows 550, which is if we sell a parcel and somebody develops on it, the land bank can capture half of the assessment for 5 years. And that was designed for us to self-fund moving forward. And lots of land banks would like the opportunity to self-fund if they get up and big enough. I can assure you that the vast majority of our parcels, we don't even see the 550 because if you sell a parcel for $500, it's not worth capturing that 550. So I would say the biggest concern is funding. And, we work very hard to deal with environmental issues. Those are often challenging. Sometimes we have the best ideas and visions, and there are challenges to overcome, like in all units of government, that for us to actually get something done and developed. And then we have the challenge of speculators, right? We don't use realtors for our properties because we want to guarantee that if we sell a parcel, if we transfer ownership of a parcel, we know what's going to go there, because it's our goal to get good, productive tax base for communities. So wholesaling out to speculators on parcels is never something that we condone, and that's why we're not a typical sort of retail sales entity. So we work very hard to make sure that any property that we dispose of, we sell, we know exactly what's going to be there. We don't want it to come back to us in 3 years when whoever speculated doesn't pay their taxes, right? So there are some of those challenges that we have moving forward.
Okay, my last question, if I may, Chair. The money that's allocated, when and how?
The blight
When
money?
is it allocated and how is it allocated? Is it on a first come, first served basis? Is it of the need? Is it the amount? Where are we at on that? Let's talk about Macomb County.
The blight money was, that was part of the last budget cycle. So it ended in October. And we are in the process of completing the allocation of that to land banks across the state. Obviously, Macomb County didn't have a land bank, so they did not get the automatic appropriation, right? So the top 10 land banks got 2.5 million off the top. All of the land banks got $500,000. There was a chunk of money that came before that, and then we're doing some competitive dollars. So all that work has been done. The last tranche of allocation, the grant applications are in, and we'll evaluate and make a decision by mid-February. So the 150 technically is spoken for. Now, we hope to see some left over, and we hope to find enough flexibility to be able to open up opportunities for additional funds to go out to local units or local partner land banks. And so it's possible, and we certainly would want to support all land banks, including our newest.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I have a suggested amendment to the agreement in front of us, and I realize there's a motion for it. How would you like me to suggest that?
You could make the amendment, and if you have support, then we could vote initially on that amendment, if you like.
Okay, I would like to make an amendment. Staff, would you pass these out, please?
Thank you.
This would be the one section, section 3, III or 3.2, Articles of Incorporation. And it would change that to read, at its initial meeting, the County Authority Board shall adopt by resolution Articles of Incorporation in the form approved by the Treasurer, County Executive, and County Board, consistent with the provisions of the agreement and the Land Bank Act. Unless otherwise required by law, the County Authority Board shall not amend the Articles of Incorporation unless such amendment is approved by the County Treasurer, County Executive, and County Board.
You have support?
Support Zinner.
Okay, we have an amendment made by Commissioner Van Sickle and supported by Commissioner Zinner. Would you like to discuss a little bit more, Commissioner?
Yes, as we've seen with other authorities, once the authority is launched or okayed by the Board of Commissioners, the authority can take on sort of a life of its own. And this is not an overreach or control by the county board of commissioners, except we get the right of refusal on if anything should go awry with changing the articles of incorporation for our authority.
Okay.
Here, if I may, before we vote on this, can I ask Macaron or Frank or somebody whether or not this is even legal to do this?
We can certainly do that. I was just going to ask if any commissioners have a question first before I bring Corporation Counsel or Skip. Okay. Skip?
Thank
Would
you.
you like to address that?
This was reviewed last week with the county executive, our office, JP Reyes here, and Corporation Counsel, Frank Crecia. I believe John Shopka also sat in. From a practical standpoint, this is a nonprofit entity. Nonprofit entities, there's a Michigan Business Corporation Act, there's a Nonprofit Corporation Act. A nonprofit is governed by its directors, and articles are by its directors. This would allow an outside agency to affect a different organization. And I don't know, and I'll let Frank opine on this, as a matter of law, it would stand. But I can tell you this, this very language was reviewed by the treasurer, Mr. Rocca, and by the county executive. JP Ray is here today, he can speak for the county executive, but the treasurer is not prepared to sign that if it's added into this agreement. So it just won't work. We understood, coming here today, by the way, informally, that this text would be excluded after discussions and negotiations with Mr. Brown, Chair Brown, and I believe the county executive. I don't want to step outside of anybody's toes. I appreciate the concern, Commissioner, I truly do. But in this case, the safety rails that are in here, and part of the problem that I can tell you that we discussed is that if this in any way, shape, or form, with the amount of money and the type of work that's going to be done by a land bank, if it's subject to a collateral attack by some activist or other person who says, hey, wait a minute, you never set it up right, or it can be changed inappropriately, that could be devastating to the county in terms of dollars and cents once money's spent. The position that at least the treasurer, and I think I speak adequately for you, sir, he won't sign the agreement if this is in it. Frank?
We got them all.
I'll let you do this after.
Oh, good.
Commissioners,
Recognize them.
as a very fundamental matter.
John, can you just state your name for the record? We're recognizing you as well.
Oh, thank you. I'm not big up.
They said Frank, so you step to the mic, that's all.
He will be stepping up. As a very fundamental, it's a new microphone. As a very fundamental matter, the Board of Commissioners has no authority whatsoever to alter or amend a contract proposed for its approval. The board's authority is limited to voting yes or voting no, but you can't amend the language of the contract.
Frank Crecia again, Assistant Corporation Counsel. And I'm looking at Court of Appeals case, a published Court of Appeals case called Hackle versus Macomb County Commissioners. It's at 298 Mishap 311 on page 13 to 17 of the slip opinion. And if you remember this case, the Board of Commissioners, this board, went to the Court of Appeals and said, Hackle's wrong because Hackle has lots of power over contracts. The executive has the power to negotiate. The executive has the power to decide whether to bring a contract. And compared to that, we have very limited powers. We just get to approve or reject the contract presented to us, which means that you told the Court of Appeals that that's your power, that you're not negotiating contracts, that you're not amending them, which is negotiation. So the Court of Appeals ruled in your favor. And it said, as compared to the executive, the commission plays a relatively passive role, requiring it to simply review and approve or disapprove whatever contracts the executive has negotiated and chosen to submit to the commission. So, to win that case, you said you wouldn't do what you're just doing. And as an attorney, whenever I present something to a court, I talk to my client about their position. When I tell the court that's their position, I tell my client they should follow that. In other words, I don't tell my client, let's say something to win a case, and then do the opposite. That's not how I practice law. Okay? Now, you told the court that you wouldn't amend, that you don't have the power to do this. You won your case, and now there's an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement, which if you read the charter, this is an agreement not between the board and the state land bank. It's between the foreclosing governmental unit, who is the county treasurer, and the state land bank. So legally, if I believe what you said to the Court of Appeals is true, you do not have the legal authority to consider this amendment. Now, to speak to the amendment, basically what you're doing is you're creating the UN. You're giving veto power to a group of parties over a resolution. I don't think that's the proper way to run an organization, and I don't think that should apply here. So I'm concerned. One of the ideas in setting this up was to balance power, not to give that type of power to one person, because it creates the opportunity for an issue that you're worried about. And as I've said, I've learned that from dealing with law enforcement agencies in investigations into this matter, in similar, what you're concerned about. So I do not think it is a properly, I don't think it's a good resolution. It doesn't accomplish what you intend, and you don't have the authority to do it.
Chair, can we please vote on the motion?
Is there any discussion available or allowed?
I have one question.
Yeah,
for
let's have,
Corporation Counsel.
let's have discussion on this item. Commissioner Van Sickle, do you have any other questions? We'll open it up to the rest of the board.
Mr. Shapka, you suggested that this was an appropriate way to accomplish what we're trying to do. Do you have an appropriate way to accomplish what we're trying to do?
There is no appropriate way. The Court of Appeals has recognized you have no authority to amend contracts proposed to you for your approval. That was, in fact, the issue in that case. Does the board have the authority to approve contracts? Clear in the charter you do. The Court of Appeals found that you do. They also limited your authority to just approving or disapproving. Now, an amendment to a proposed contract, even without the Court of Appeals opinion, would fail, because this wasn't negotiated with the other party. Did you call the state? Did you negotiate this with them? No, you didn't. That defeats a meeting of the minds. That's a fundamental element of any contract. Every first week law student learns that. Can't change the contract behind the other contracting party's back. If you did, we'd get a free jail. We'd get everything we need without paying for it, because the Board of Commissioners would simply amend the contract to a deal to do away with the payment portions. You can't do that. We learned that in law school. It's true then, still true today. But then we layer on top of it the charter. We layer on top of it the Court of Appeals opinion. At this point, the board's only authority is vote it up or vote it down. Approve or disapprove. That's all. It's very simple.
Okay. Chair, based on corporate counsel's opinion, I would like to withdraw the motion.
Okay.
I
Commissioner Lucido did have a question.
The support of the motion has to agree.
Commissioner Zinner, do you withdraw your support?
I will agree with the commissioner.
Commissioner Lucido.
So I have a question for Corporation Counsel. I understand what you were saying, that we could not amend the contract, but is it possible to make, to table an issue? Let's say we get a contract in front of us that we agree, but we have a question about one part of the contract. Or do we have the ability to make a recommendation for the executive to reconsider part of the contract and then bring it back at a later date? I guess is my question.
You can always make that recommendation, of course, because it's a recommendation, the executive does not have to.
Well, of course. I mean, the executive, even if we change this contract, technically doesn't have to sign it.
It's been presented once. This is the second presentation. I don't think it's going to change a third time.
No, that was just to clarify for future references. Nothing to do actually with this. So.
I say this a lot in a lot of different contexts, and I don't mean it to sound trite, but it's a free country, and most of us are free to do a lot of things as long as it's not prohibited by law. Making a recommendation is not prohibited. So you can
we
do
could
that.
make the recommendation, because let's say, obviously, I support this land bank, and I think it's a great idea, but maybe this contract I might have some questions about, but I can just make those recommendations then to him. I just couldn't make the amended motion tonight, is what you're saying.
I honestly, sincerely don't believe it's going to change regardless of any recommendations. This is the treasurer as the foreclosing unit of government. That is his statutory authority between the treasurer acting on behalf of the county and the state of Michigan. This is the best structure that we will ever see for a land bank. It does not guarantee that it'll never fall victim to corruption, but it certainly gets us 98% of the way there.
All right. Thank you. That's all I have, Chair.
Okay, so I think we're clear at this point. So Commissioner Kraft is next on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a slew of questions and comments before that whole conversation, so I'm going to be quick. Folks from the State Land Bank, if we as a county do go forth and create this, what is the difference between what you would do at the state with our properties here in Macomb as opposed to what we would do in Macomb with our properties?
Very little, right? Our partner land banks we support, but they do the work. We're sort of the land bank of last resort. So we acquire properties that other parts of the state are not represented by land banks or don't want, even don't want. And we have a significant portfolio. When we first were created, the foreclosure laws were a little different. And so we have parcels all over the state that were given to us initially, and we still obviously acquire parcels, but we do the same thing our local partners do, basically.
So if we did not go forward in creating this authority, the state land bank would still hold those properties and could still continue the process with them, basically, correct?
The ones in our inventory, but that's just a handful, right?
Sure.
A Macomb County Land Bank would be able to partner with their communities and lean in significantly more on parcels and areas of your county that need attention. We get only what's given to us, and we only have a handful. So you have a lot, I'm assuming, you have a lot of parcels in Macomb County that, working with a local land bank and communities, you could do some great things.
So right now in Macomb, how are our properties given to the state land bank?
We just have, those are holdovers from years ago, and parcels that I don't even think, a local land bank would want, right? So the G&H landfill, and I mean, nobody wants those. And so we end up taking them. But we have not acquired anything new from Macomb in a very, very long time. And I think your municipalities are currently burdened with those. And so you would have an opportunity to have people here on the ground doing the work that we do, focused on Macomb County.
Okay, so I'm just gonna make a couple comments. Thank you guys for making the trip out here. I know it's not a quick one. Philosophically, I am against land banks. The fact that we're using tax dollars for land to be developed that nobody else wants kind of hits me hard, in the sense that I know the folks in my community would want their tax dollars to be spent on roads or to be spent on their houses not flooding, to have proper mitigation for that. Now we're purchasing property that nobody else wants. So the taxpayer dollars are purchasing property that nobody wants. I want to reiterate that. I could say that over and over again until I'm blue in the face. I understand what you're trying to do. I know you want to better the property and things like that, but local business owners, local developers don't want to do that either, so we're gonna use tax dollars to do that. You're shaking your head no.
Well, we have the ability to buy a parcel, but we don't buy parcels. They're generally given to us because nobody else wants them. And then we utilize
Who
any and
gives
all,
them, not to interrupt, who gives them to you?
usually the foreclosing entity, or in our case, old prison sites, property that the DNR does not want. It's, at some point, Department of Corrections or DHHS or somebody, or all these tax reverted properties from many years ago that went to the DNR at one point. That's what we have. We have the power to acquire, to purchase, and occasionally a land bank might have used some blight dollars to purchase a property for a small amount of money and then tear it down to improve that area or that part of the community. But we generally do not, very rarely would there be a purchase of a property. We usually use the term acquire, because we end up with them when nobody else wants them. And I don't know what the intent of Macomb County is, but that's
So-
generally the case.
But once you require it, you have to mitigate it and improve it, right? Which requires dollars, and those dollars come from,
Generally grants or,
which come from,
yeah, sure.
I mean, you're state rep, you're former state rep, you know how this goes. All the money that the state gives out in grants or any other form is still taxpayer dollars at the end of the day.
Right, but the investment is, and the goal is, right, to put a little money in to these properties, and so we can get them back on the tax rolls, so you can, ultimately, it's like any other tax incentive program that, good, bad, or indifferent, all governments engage in. We invest to be able to generate tax funds ultimately. So we're very creative in how we do it. We're generally a minute burden. Like I said, we have a 550 program where we capture some of the money in this new tax revenue that a city does, like a DDA, right? And so it's not, we're not taking a bunch of money and buying properties for speculative purposes. We generally have very little outlay, and acquiring is very unusual.
Okay.
And I don't know the intent, but I think they agree.
Yeah, from the county standpoint, we acquire these properties when they're not sold at foreclosure to anybody else. We don't buy them. But we're stuck with taking care of them, redeveloping them. And the land bank assists, South Warren, Mount Clemens, the Village of Romeo. All of the communities have properties that are reverted back to the land bank that aren't marketable. And with the land bank, we have foreclosure funds that we can use. If those drain out and we have a standing obligation for contaminated property and we can't get them to the state land bank, then it's general fund monies. But the bottom line is the return on investment is huge when you're talking about the ability to have the programs that a land bank has. But the land bank doesn't buy properties. And I apologize if that was said to you in some way, fashion, or form. That's just not true. We wouldn't do that.
And I'm just trying to piece this all together because at the end of the day, there are taxpayer dollars used at some point to improve this property that nobody else wants.
Government operates off of tax dollars, absolutely.
Excuse me, Deputy, would you speak in the microphone so we
Oh,
can
I'm
all hear
sorry.
you?
I apologize, Joe.
It's all right, go ahead.
Commissioner Joe. All government operates off of tax dollars. That's the lifeblood of it. The issue becomes, what is the most efficient way to do it? Prior to the Raffaelli decision, I want to talk about law cases. We got Corporation Counsel to do that. We could put properties back to local units of government. Now we keep them. So it becomes a county responsibility. And with the land bank, you have the 30,000-foot view as to what's the best for the county as a whole. And the land bank meetings, by the way, they're all public meetings. All of you are able to attend. And if you have a particular area that you'd like addressed, all you need to do is send a memo over or attend the meeting, mention it. It can come under consideration in an open meeting and be discussed and debated just as you're doing today. There's probably been some misinformation about land banks, but really there's been a tremendous amount of work put into this. And I certainly would hope that you'd look at it with an open mind, give it a chance. The worst you're going to do is have it for 5 years, and a little bit over that, you can end it under the statute. The worst that can happen as far as who you nominate from your own body, which will be your choice, or confirm as to the nomination of the executive is, if it was a poor choice, you can remove them. I just don't see a downside to this from a practical standpoint, the way Macomb County's operated. And again, instead of saying, we're an independent body, we're gonna set our own rules, Corporation Counsel was very careful to say, we're gonna follow everything the county does, so it's familiar to everyone. And if you have questions or somebody steps aside or astray, you'll know it when you see it. And we'll be the first to tell you. But Larry's worked very, very hard on this page. Bashan's worked very hard on this. This is additional work for the county, but it has a great benefit in the long run to so many people.
Thank you, Skip. Thank you, gentlemen. One last thing real quick about the contract specifically, since we can't edit it, we can't amend it, we can't change it. I also disagree with the makeup of the board. The treasurer gets a person, the executive gets a himself or herself or a designee, as do the Board of Commissioners get a person appointed by us. Then there's two other spots that are appointments made by the executive and then approved by the board. So in this makeup, I see it as 3 for the executive, 1 for the treasurer, 1 for the Board of Commissioners, because I've been here long enough to know that if the executive brings an appointment to the board for approval, if we say no, he gets another one, he gets another one, he gets another one. That's the cycle of how this goes. So I do take issue with that. And Frank did say everybody has a voice on the board, which they do. It is not equal, though. That's all I have. I don't need any other.
Well, the only thing I
feedback.
point to
Thank
is
you, Mr.
section
Chair.
3.8 of the charter that gives nominating authority to the executive solely, and he yielded one to the board exclusively.
Commissioner Zinner.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Commissioner Kraft. I look at it as a great investment for the county, wonderful, with the right perspective, the right people, the right buddies working together. Certain things could be accomplished. I think it's wonderful. And exactly what Commissioner Kraft explained is why I will not be voting for this. We would have to have equal people, not one with the power, equal entities on that board to make sure the money is allocated properly. That's just what we have to have with this board, because every commissioner here works hard for their citizens, every one of us. So I would want that every entity is make sure that the money goes properly for the county and not for, and I'm not saying that anyone's bad or good, I'm just saying we commissioners work hard for, all these commissioners work hard for our citizens. And I agree with Commissioner Kraft very much. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Song.
Thank you, Chair. Regarding the state land bank dollars, how much money would we be leaving on the table if we don't approve this resolution?
I can't give you an exact number. I can tell you because you weren't a land bank 6 months ago, you left 2.5 million on the table. And I would say probably double that with competitive grants. You know, we work very hard to support local land banks, and in the event you form and we can find mechanisms or avenues to make sure every penny of that 150 million is spent moving forward, there is an opportunity. But if you're not a land bank, I would say that doesn't exist. And I would also just, Commissioner, there's also a cost to blighted properties, right? You're right. I mean, we spend money to clean those up, but right now you have law enforcement, sometimes fire and abandoned properties that burn up. You have the blight and what that impacts on your overall community. So there is a significant cost to blighted properties, which is, you know, part of the reason we came to be 20 years ago.
So I support this resolution. I trust that our county executive and our treasurer know what they're doing, and the fact that we're going to be leaving millions of dollars on the table, it doesn't make sense for us to continue to postpone this. Just some clarification, though, if we do establish a county land bank, will the municipalities be able to establish their own as well, or how would that work?
Under the law, that's never been the case. Detroit, of course, gets to, there's
Because
different.
Detroit has their own land bank, correct? So like if
Correct.
Warren wanted to have their own land bank, would they be able to do that?
if there's an existing county land bank that municipalities do not have the opportunity. Public Act 53 of 2023 allows, if a county doesn't have a land bank and a municipality is big enough, they can establish their own. Grand Rapids, we anticipate doing that because Kent County did not want to establish a land bank. But no, for the most part, it's been our experience that on a countywide basis, it's far better because the foreclosure process is at the county level. And so, municipalities trying to do their own is very, very difficult because ultimately it's far easier for the treasurer, which is why the treasurer is appointed to the board, to interface and work with the county land bank. And that's why it's established the way it is.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Nard.
Hi, and that's the very reason that I support it, is that it comes from the county level. I'm in the south end of Warren, so blighted properties is something I know all too well. And I would love to see that changed, not just residential blighted properties, but a lot of businesses are blighted. And it would be awesome to see now we'll have something that would not just look at certain parts of the northern part, but I know that I trust that the treasurer would also be looking at that southern portion. So definitely, I know we need to do a lot of development there. So I'm supporting this today.
Just a couple questions. Just been listening to some of the dialogue. Joe, you said in your presentation the TIF, so the tax incentive portion of that. With the TIF, what?
Who's playing the music?
Thought it was my lead on music here or something. So can you explain just a little bit how that works? Because you said it's speculative. So let's just say someone wanted to take on this property. That group, whomever, would have no fees or taxes for the duration of trying to solve the property's issues during that time. Is that how the TIF works?
No, tax increment financing would be different, but under the state statute, any property in a land bank technically qualifies as a brownfield for tax increment finance purposes. Okay. So if a property is in the inventory of a land bank, no taxes are paid, which is, remember, most of our properties are tax averted, so taxes haven't been paid for an extended period of time for the most part, right? And so if it's in our inventory, we don't pay taxes or fees. But TIF, we also qualify automatically for what would be considered a brownfield tax increment financing opportunity. So when we have larger parcels, usually, we can develop a plan utilizing the capture of taxes on the growth of the property tax to offset some of the costs used for site preparation. So just a quick example, we got a large piece of, say we have a landfill parcel that somebody wants to develop, put a solar development on, for instance, right? They could actually capture some of the taxes generated by that solar development to help the site preparation to allow the construction of the solar development, if that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. It's much like a DDA, okay, right? It's like a downtown development authority.
Okay, and I would assume
that has to be part of a plan and approved, so it does. It's not automatic.
And then obviously the local zoning would have to adhere to that. That doesn't change at all.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so torn on this issue, quite honestly.
Frank, has been significant success across the state with land banks. I'll just say that, right? And I don't anticipate Macomb County to be any differently, right? Genesee County is a model. I'm from Bay City, Bay County, and we just tore down 6 or 7 houses because of the blight funds that we had. But it's just 5% of the treasurer's time getting that work done, right? So you have all kinds of opportunities to do what's in the best interest of of Macomb County, and we're the support mechanism to do that. And we've had very little. If you think about land banks across the state, from Marquette to Genesee County to all across the state, Traverse City, we've done really great work, and you could do really great work too. And, you know, I guess we'll leave it at that. I'm not, you know, you get to make your own decision, but we're here to support and continue to develop land banks and the value of them across our state.
Thank you, Joe. Quick question. Frank, I know you individually, I believe, were always a no on land banks, and the executive was a no on land banks, and then that changed. What was the reason that you went from a no to a yes on this topic?
Pretty much the Hall decision in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. But let me explain, give you a quick history of what happened. I've done every tax foreclosure since they changed the law in 1999. And the treasurer I started to work with was Ted Wabi. Now, Ted Wabi's position was he basically strong-armed the communities to buy all the properties. And that way they could decide the best way to develop it. Now, the problem with that now is that the county is on the hook for the damages. There's damages now for selling the property to the community. That's the Hall decision.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the other problem we have now is we have communities that bought all these properties and are wondering what to do with them. Okay? What these gentlemen are proposing, and the treasurer went to talk to these people, and he came back and told me, Frank, I think the solution to this is a land bank. I then looked at it again, and I agreed with the treasurer. I think that we can't continue to do what we used to be doing. We have to do things more in accordance with the proper procedures for dealing with all these properties that we were foreclosing on every 3 years is to have a land bank and put those properties in the land bank and use the available resources. Our goal here is to help Macomb County. It's not to make a buck. It's not to give a contract to somebody to get a ticket or something like that. Our goal here is to take that parcel of property that's got blight on it. And if you wonder about what's our business in doing that, I know people that live next to these properties and they wonder why the heck they're not being cleaned up.
Thank you.
And this will help get those cleaned up. And so that's what the treasurer came back and suggested. I looked at it again. I looked at the changes in the law, and I said, this is the right way to do it. We would only take properties that there's now a procedure to claim, surplus on properties. And it would be only properties that nobody's interested in because, they didn't file their notice of intent to claim. So everybody has the right. I can give you an example. I foreclosed on a property that was a dry cleaning facility that was torched by the owner in Warren. And it was a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wanted to touch it. And you end up selling that to some speculator and who knows what you get on it. That property could have gone into the land bank. We could have worked with the state. We could have worked with Warren, which is exactly what we do. We go to the Warren, we go to the state, and we'd find a solution. What's the best thing to do with this parcel of property? We would get the resources to properly restore the property, and then it would be put back on the tax rolls. And that's what we're looking at for the land bank, and also to fix up the neighborhoods. I mean, we have whole stretches of foreclosed properties in the city of Warren that can't be developed now. The land bank would give them a tool to put some reasonable, affordable housing, which I think is one of the big needs of the county. And without the land bank, we lose the ability to do that. Warren, and Warren can't really do it. They need our help to do it because they got the properties from us and they'll continue to get properties from us. So it makes more sense. And I've talked to Warren about it.
But why can't they do it?
They have it right now. They haven't done it. They need help. We would provide the assistance to Warren to develop these tracks. And they would provide assistance to us to do that. And that's why I think has been holding it back. And that's why I changed my mind on this. When I saw what was happening with the state and the other counties, I said the solution that we applied in our county 20 years ago doesn't work anymore. Larry's right. We need to change it. And this is the change.
Okay, thank you. We're in second round here. Commissioner Hall.
One of the reasons you need to establish a land bank, to answer Commissioner Sabatini's question, is the local municipalities don't want to become real estate agents. They don't want to go out and seek financing for this. They don't want to become a sales department. So by consolidating into the county, you're helping the local municipality out. And as far as the way the board is being proposed to be constructed, Frank, you reviewed this, John reviewed this, Skip reviewed this, Larry reviewed this. I understand the AG's office reviewed this, and you guys reviewed it. You didn't see a problem with it. But we got commissioners sitting here that do, because they think our executive is going to appoint two friends or two buddies, which is pure baloney. These people are going to be professional. To make this work, they have to be professional planning. They have to be professional real estate. So this continuously comes up. I think we voted up or we voted down. This change by Commissioner Van Sickle being recommended here, that's the way he feels, and vote no. I don't agree with this one bit, because these guys have already vetted this document. I trust our Macomb County corporate attorneys. That's what we pay them for. If we don't trust them, we need to look, well, we can't do that. We need not to ask them. How's that? I mean, this continues, this is the way we're starting the new year off. I just find it a little bit upsetting that this is the way we want to deal with our corporate elected officials and attorneys, by telling them we don't trust their opinion. That's just my opinion.
I won't speak to.
I know, I'm
Macomb
not
County
asking
Attorney.
you.
But I will, let me just comment if you're on the fence, right? We have relationships with Eagle. I speak on an ongoing basis with the Mission Director, Amy Hovey. We can, if there is a parcel that you want our suggestion and advice and partnership and resources and suggestions, right? We talk all the time with Eagle and DNR and MISTA, and we're a resource for you and that's why a land bank makes sense, because we can bring those resources from the state, whatever they may be, Eagle grants to clean up a circumstance like he's talking about, MISTA opportunities to partner to do attainable housing. We provide that opportunity for collaboration to help your community, and that's why we would look forward to working with Treasurer Rock and all of Macomb County.
And Chair, point of order, we removed the amendment. Is
We
that
did,
correct?
we did,
Okay,
Commissioner.
thank you.
Commissioner Van Sickle.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, it's blighted properties have been mentioned several times. Properties don't go into a land bank because they're blighted. Properties go into the land bank because they are taxed. They foreclosed. So whether it's a blighted property that somebody's still paying the taxes on,
You have nothing,
you have nothing to do with that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Now, I think in Detroit, there may be a difference, right? But all the rest of the state, no. But we normally see blighted properties as the step before they become tax reverted.
Yeah, I'm not saying people want to continue to put money into those, but I just wanted to make that distinction. Also, somebody made the statement that the county used to sell the properties that were foreclosed to the municipalities, and now that doesn't work so good?
That's
Because
correct.
of the law where they said the previous owner can sue or something?
Yes, there are two decisions. Raffaelli is if we sell it at the auction and there's a surplus, there was no procedure to claim the surplus. That's been corrected by a statute, which I think was sponsored by Pete Lucido. And so now there's a claims procedure, there's been one since 2020. But there was another provision in the statute that that the county was required to offer the properties to a community, and the community would purchase. Now what would happen is the community would say, I want this good piece of property, but I'm gonna leave you the junk. And that's where Ted Wabi came in and said, you buy them all or you don't get one, and so they all bought the property. And so what happened in the Hall decision is they held that that was a taking by the county, and the county's responsible for the damages, even though the county just got the taxes paid back and the community made the profit off the property. So That's what we're dealing with in Hall.
But that same law doesn't apply to if the property goes from the county into the land bank?
We now have the surplus procedure that Lucido helped adopt. And if the people don't apply, if somebody applies for, files an intent to claim surplus, and the deadline's July 1st for this year's, our tax foreclosure hearing's next Friday, and the deadline to file the claim is July 1st. If somebody files the claim and we put it in a land bank, we would have to pay the fair market value to that person. But we don't get many claims, and especially on properties like this, they just want to, you know, we have a house now where it was torched in one of the big subdivisions. I mean, you know, that's, the neighbors are all complaining. You know, what are you going to do? So we used to get, and the other thing that I want to mention is I am representing the treasurer in a number of nuisance lawsuits filed by municipalities to clean up properties. And they name us because when we start foreclosure, there's a recording in the Register of Deeds. So what we used to do is I tell the parties, you know, just let it go to foreclosure, we'll let the community buy it, and that way the community will own it and clean it up for the taxes. They don't have to go through the process. Now, because of this, it would have to go into a land bank.
So at this point, can the treasurer, if we have a land bank, the treasurer would give the properties to the land bank from the foreclosure?
Yeah, technically, the treasurer technically owns the property after the redemption period expires. It's as the foreclosing governmental unit. They call them FGUs or whatever in the law. And that's why this agreement is with the foreclosing governmental unit, which is Larry Rocca, and the state. And then the foreclosing governmental entity would transfer that property into the land bank at that point.
So if the treasurer can transfer the property into a Macomb County land bank, could he transfer it into the state land bank?
We would have to accept it, but we probably, I mean, we're open to that.
The preferred method is for the counties to have their own land bank, because then you have control. Then we talk to the local municipality, we talk to the state, and we come up with a solution for that particular piece of property. And you kind of, you know, I'm not saying the state doesn't want to deal with the locals so much, but I think we have a better relationship with our local communities. And that's why I kind of changed, all of these reasons I kind of changed my mind on land banks, is because I've talked to Warren. They kind of like the idea. You know, what do we do with all these properties that Ted forced us to buy and we can't do anything with? You know,
But if we don't,
so, and the answer to that is really, we should, looking back on it now, it would have been better for us to have a land bank, okay? And when Larry came up with that suggestion, I couldn't find a good argument against him. And I think it's better for the local municipalities to have our treasurer in charge of that land bank, because he can work with the state, he works with the board, he works with the locals.
And there's only 9 of us at the state land bank, right? So we're a small team. Jeff works really hard, but there's only 9 of us. So we couldn't in any way, shape, or form accept all the properties that every community wanted to give us. That's why, you know, so, you know, we're happy to help, happy to partner, but it really does make a lot more sense for your own community to address your own needs.
Thank you,
Commissioner
Chair.
Lucido.
All right.
Commissioner Van Sickle, you're all set.
Thank you,
correct?
Chair.
Really quick, so I just have one quick question. You talked about like Warren and having all these properties that Ted made them buy. So let's say they have, 300 vacant parcels that they have not been able to find a developer to come in and redevelop them, and they want to give them to the county. Does the county have the ability to decline taking them from Warren?
Yeah, yes, what we would do is we would come to an agreement. We discuss things with them, we talk about finance, you know, obviously, it's not, they can't force them on us, we can't force them away. It has to be done by mutual agreement.
So like if this county land bank wanted to just focus on one area of the county and neglect another one, technically those board members would have the ability to do that, or would it be up to the treasurer, I guess is my question. Would the treasurer have that control, or would that be the land bank board that would have that control?
That wouldn't happen. I think one of the candidates is potentially a township supervisor, and we'll have local representation. the whole idea behind the county doing the land bank is to not neglect an area of the county, is to provide services to all areas of the county as needed.
Right. No, I'm just, like what Commissioner Nard was saying, like, our communities probably have the most land, and it might be a lot for the land bank just to take it all at once. Would they be doing that? I guess that was my question more so than anything.
Well, it's not gonna happen overnight.
Right.
But half of the foreclosures are in Warren.
Right.
And they're in the southern end of Warren, and I know that because I've been doing it for years. And that's where the most of the problem is, but there are problems all over the county. And the other problem is some communities don't have the resources to deal with this because they don't have that big of a problem. What we're doing with the land bank, what the treasurer is doing, is making those resources available to other communities. So it's kind of like a benefit to the communities that really don't have that much of a problem, but it's also a benefit to the communities that have a big problem.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Romano, second round? Or is this? Please speak into your mic. Please speak into your mic, Commissioner.
When this was first presented, I was very apprehensive about this, okay? And after hearing all the discussion, not only from our legal department, from Lansing, from different sources, and believe me, I've talked to different sources. I went to Oakland County also. If you look at, and I understand Commissioner Kraft's concern, I really, truly do. But if you look at the positive aspects of it, compared to the negatives, it's far heads and above. It's nothing but great compared to what the negative part of it would be. And having said that, why don't you call for a vote?
I see no one else on the list. Thank goodness. So we are ready for a vote. Please call the vote.
So we're voting yes for the land bank or no for the land bank.
That is correct, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Bless you.
See votes from Commissioners Nard and Perna.
Nard votes yes, mine
Yes,
didn't come up.
thank you. Got him. Motion passes 7-5. Commissioners Grote, Kraft, Sabatini, Van Sickle, and Wallace voting no.
Okay.
As we move on.
Next item is public participation. This is the opportunity for public participation for those who would like to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any issue. Would anyone from the public like to speak?
I know it was difficult for everybody today, and that's why we had to do what we did to present to you the state people and all the experts I have in my office, as well as corporate counsel. And I appreciate your support for the land bank. I think in the long run, you're going to be very happy for the Macomb County land bank, because it's going to do nothing but good for all the communities, all the cities, all the townships, all the villages. Will have an ample opportunity to utilize their properties in a proper manner. So I thank you all for hearing us, and I thank the state people for coming out and giving the extra push, as well as the corporate counsel and all my staff that's here. Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the public like to speak? Please state your name.
Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Fred Neenstead, Clinton Township. I recently spoke about the prospects for our new medical examiner. I don't know if anything has transpired in the last month. I'm hoping that I'm at the right commission meeting to talk about the issue. And specifically, I was concerned about the criteria being used and how much input the commission had. And my understanding originally was that it was an up or down vote from the county executive's choices, right? Now, I'm just kind of curious if that's exactly the case, right? And then what sort of role does the medical examiner actually have in this new Reproductive Health Care Act? So my understanding is that the medical examiner does have some input with vital statistics reporting. I would hope that if the law does have a void in vital statistics reporting, that the commission would step up and create an ordinance that would fill that void. There is no law against vital statistics reporting by the medical examiner. I hope you could take that challenge and move forward. But first off, has there been a choice? Has the medical examiner's position been named? I'm hoping you could give me an answer in your comments. Thank you very much.
Would anyone else like to speak on the public participation? Going once, twice. We'll close public participation. Commissioner comments? Commissioner Lucido?
Just to answer the gentleman's question, we're still contracting with Oakland County for the medical examiner right now. We have not hired anyone to fill that position at this time. That's all I have.
Commissioner Haw?
With deep sorrow that I announced that our good friend Marv Sauger passed away today. He was in for a long illness, and he died at the age of 87. Many of us knew him, Commissioner Perna, myself, Commissioner, served with him for many years. He was retired Macomb County Sheriff. Matter of fact, he was my brother's training sergeant, so we've known Marvin for a long time. I'd like to take a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you, Joe. That's all I have.
Commissioner Perna?
I don't know if anybody saw the Free Press last weekend about the Board of Commissioners of Macomb County and how we are all united. It was a very, very good article that we do cross the lines, we do cooperate, we look out for the best interests of Macomb County. If you didn't see the article, bring it up. It's a very complimentary article regarding Democrats and Republicans working together.
Okay, seeing no other speakers under commissioner comments, we'll go to closed session to discuss a confidential memo from Corporation Counsel dated January 18th, 2024. I need a motion to enter into closed session.
So moved by Nard.
Support, Lucido.
Moved by Commissioner Nard, supported by Commissioner Lucido.